Welcome back to Yerushalmi Demai. We are holding Nun Hey Amud Beis. I thought I'd start. I mentioned in the share yesterday a bit about Kinyonim. So, a couple of differences between Bavli and Yerushalmi with regard to Kinyonim. Okay, so the Bavli holds that Kinyon are Pi Svara, right? According to the Bavli, Kinyon based on logic. According to Yerushalmi, we find places where Kinyonim help, where there's no logic at all. Right? For example, freeing an Eved Kanani with Kesef, according to the Bavli, Kesef, the money, if you free an Eved Kanani, you've got to give it to the owner, right? Because the Eved is freed with the money that the owner receives, right? And Yerushalmi brings down, listen to this, Yerushalmi says, the master gives the money to others and the servant becomes free. Is there any logic in that? No logic. Right, no svara in that, but that's what Yerushalmi holds, that Kinyonim don't always have a svara. And also I said to you yesterday about different types of Kinyonim. Yerushalmi brings Kinyonim not mentioned in Bavli. Yerushalmi mentions Kinyon Katsotza. By selling a field, the relations of the seller bring barrels full of nuts, and they break them in front of the children. Now, Bavli mentions Katsotza, but only talking about getting married, not as a Kinyon. So that's how I said to you that Yerushalmi's got different ideas about Kinyonim. Okay, we're up to my Tama, right, which is Nun Hey Amud Beis, right? Now we're talking about the Machlokes Rabbi Yosef Chanina and Rabbi Yochanan about Tovas Hana'ah. Now first we mentioned the reason of Rabbi Yosef Chanina, that you're allowed to give your maestros as Tovas Hana'ah. You're allowed to decide who to give them to. Let's see. My Tama Rabbi Yosef Chanina. It says with the Matanas Kuna, Beish es Kadashav Lo Yiu. The Lashon Lo Yiu means it will be for his benefit, that the owner of the Matanas is allowed to get benefit by giving them and getting money for it as well. Okay? Alright, and Ma Avalei Rabbi Yochanan, right? What does Rabbi Yochanan do with this pasuk? How does he explain it? So according to him, the words Lo Yiu is Sheyid name L'kami Sheyidza. You can give it to anyone you want, any Cohen, any Levi. And other Kohenim Levim can't start taking it against his will. They can't do that. Sorry, one second. Yeah, they can't take it against his will, but he's not allowed to take money for it. He's not allowed to take money for giving it. Right? Now the Gemara asks from Yezra Chanina from Mishnah Nidarim. Masnisa pliga Yezra Chanina seems to argue, it says Kohenim Levim Neneli. Now if someone forbids with a neder all Kohenim Levim to get benefit, Yitlu, then the Kohenim Levim can take his trumas and maestros Baal Kocha against his will. He's separated them, so his money, his matanas belong to the Kohenim. So they're not getting benefit from his, they're getting benefit of their own. Now, according to Yezra Chanina, you can get money for the Tovas Hana'ah that you have in maestros. How can the Kohenim Levim take these maestros when there's a neder against them? They're getting benefit, they're getting monetary benefit. So, pasale, so he answers that Ba'omer, where a person says, look, the man doesn't want to give any matanas at all. His neder is forbidding Bahana all Kohenim in the world. It's as if he's saying, I'm not giving Trumas and Maestros at all to any Kohen or any Levi. Therefore, he's got no zechus of Tovas Hana'ah in giving it, and therefore the Kohenim of him can take it against his will. They're not getting benefit at all, right? He can't. He's sort of forbidden himself to give to anyone. So he's got no Tovas Hana'ah that by them taking it, they're getting a benefit. And he can't start forbidding the whole Kohenim, the whole world. Okay? So the Lashon in the Bavli is, once he's forbidden Trumas Maestros on all the Kohenim, it's as if he's mafkir, the Tovas Hana'ah that he has. He can't give it to any Kohen or any Levi. And since he's got no Tovas Hana'ah, the Kohenim can take it against his will. Okay. I'll prove it to you. The Taminan, we've learnt in the Sefer of that Mishnah, it says, Kohenim elu levim elu neneli. If he says, I'm just forbidding these Kohenim, these levim, yidlu acherim, then other Kohenim can take it, or other levim can take the Trumas and Maestros, but those Kohenim that he forbade can't take it. So it's considered Hana, which is also, is like Hana, which is also from the Chasam of the Madir. He's got Schus Tovas Hana, And why is it permitted in the first case? Because the first case he forbade all Kohanim. He doesn't want to give it at all, and he's got no Toras Hana. Whereas in this case, he's only forbidding a certain group, and therefore there is a Toras Hana. Masnisa Pliga Rav Yochanan. The following brisa argues on, he appears to argue Rav Yochanan. Aymahu Yisrael, a Jew, Yisrael could tell Yisrael, Hilach Selazeh, take this money, V'ten b'char zeh leben biti Cohen. You've got b'char behema, give it to my grandson, which is my daughter's son, who is a Cohen. And that's not a problem. So Yisrael is allowed to receive money for Toras Hana, to give the b'char to any Cohen that he wants, not like Rav Yochanan who forbade it. So here, one Yisrael is saying, here, take some money so that you'll give your b'char to my grandson. Pasale, so Rav Yochanan answers it, Barosa Lidna L'Shnaim Kohanim. It's talking about the Yisrael who owns the b'char, wants to give it to two Kohanim equally, or Ben Bitai, and this grandson of the one who gave the money is Ahmed, is one of the two that was anyway chosen. He's a partner that was going to get it anyway. But Ayman, the giver says, Hilach Selazeh, take this money, we take Kulai, Leben Biti Cohen. And then you'll give all of it to my grandson who's a Cohen. So if Yochanan agrees, you're allowed to get schar for Toras Hana, because anyway he would have given this Cohen. Right? He would have given it as a partnership. And now he would have given it now, and the other person said, give it all to him. But anyway he would have given it. But now he's giving the b'char for the sake of the selab which he's taking. It's not so noticeable, because he would have given this Cohen anyway. So they asked in front of Zira, now in this situation, you wanted to give it to two Kohanim. Now, is it Kohen Yisrael also? It sounds like the brisa that Yisrael's allowed to tell another Yisrael, take this coin and give the b'char to my grandson who's a Kohen. Right, that was the case. Yisrael telling Yisrael. But a Kohen who tells Yisrael, take this coin and give the b'char to Kohen, my relative, that would be forbidden. Now, according to the picture of Yochanan, that you want to give to two Kohanim anyway, and giving the coin is just you give one of them all of it, then we should have allowed even a Cohen who tells a Yisrael, take this money and give to my friend the Cohen. Why is it only Yisrael who's allowing it? Because anyway the owner wanted to give this Cohen a chelek of the firstborn. Ma agivun. Rabbi Sai, Yerushalmi word for you. Have we had that one before? Ma agivun. What did he answer it? What did Zira answer the ones asking questions? Rabbi Yossi, Amar lo agivun. He didn't answer it. Rabbi Chizkiv Shem Rabacha, he says, Hachin Amar, this is what he said. Why can a Kohen not give money to Yisrael for the Ben Bechor or whatever to his grandson? Why is it forbidden? It's talking about where you didn't want to give this Kohen at all, but you're allowed to give the money, so you'll give to the grandson who's a Kohen, because he wants to pay money for Toras Hana. Why is it forbidden with a Kohen asking Yisrael? He says, the reason is because of my side. It looks like the Cohen is acquiring the Bechor for himself. That's the problem. If that's the case, Rav Yochanan will also hold that it's a problem. That Cohen in Israel is also that Cohen giving. So Cohen going to Israel, here's some money and give the Bechor to my grandson. He says the problem looks like the Cohen's buying it for himself. You see, he's like buying the Bechor with his money. It's talking about where the owner maybe wanted to give to two Kohanim, and it's permitted when it's Yisrael to Yisrael, but Kohen to Yisrael is forbidden. Again, the problem of Ma'aseh Ayin, that's what he's saying. That's the reason. Kohen to Yisrael, why it's also. Right? It's because of Ma'aseh Ayin. But when a Kohen gives money to Yisrael, to give it to his family, he says, Chilul Kodshim Yeshkan. You are despising the holiness of the Bechor. Right? That, it's got to be given to a Kohen with respect and not for money. That's the problem. But Tema, you want to say the problem is Bibnei Ma'aseh Ayin, as if he's acquiring the Bechor himself, is much worse than that. It's not because of Ma'aseh Ayin. It's because you're Machalal, you're ridiculing the Kodshim. The Kedusha of the Bechor is meant to be given, not bought. You follow? That's the problem over here. That you're actually being Mavazer the Kodshim. And furthermore, another proof that there's a much worse problem here of Chilul Kodshim. If the Kohen are supporting, remember they're standing by in the threshing area, and their whole intention is the Kohen will give them trumas when they walk by, right? Ein lahen, we do not give them no truma, no masa, nothing. And if you did, you have profaned Hekdesh. Shenema, as it says with Truma, you shall not profane that which is holy. And these Kohanim, who are supporting in the granary and the threshing areas, they are profaning all the country there. So even if a Cohen is not giving money for Trumas and Maestros, he's just helping a bit with the work. You hear that? He's shoving a bit, helping a bit. Oh, here, I'll pick this up for you. We know what his intention is, Rabbi Isai. It's terrible. Even if he's not saying clearly, oh, I'm doing this for the Truma, for the Avodah, to give me the Truma. No, it's Chilul HaKodesh. And therefore, how much worse it is if he's actually paying money towards it, right? How much worse it is. Okay. We're still in Isam and Rabbanon. It's not Isam and Torah. Okay. They went further. They said, if you give Trumas and Maestros to those Kohanim who are working in that area, Trumasan Eino Truma. The Truma is not valid. Masrais and Eino Masrais. It's a knas. The Chachamim said you got to take Truma again. Take Maser again. Behegdeshon Einon Hegdesh. Whatever you've done on that food or produce to give it state of holiness, you've failed. It says, that the Kohanim, they're acquiring their gifts with price, with money. Three punishments. It says, because of this, because of you, Sion will be plowed. The field will be plowed and uprooted. Yerushalmi, it will be empty. The Harav will be with the wastelands of the birds, etc. So there'll be desolate area. If we mevazeh kachim, then they're punished with the chilul of the Beis Hamikdash. Okay, they correspond Rosheh, B'shoichad, Yishpoitu. These are the three averas mentioned in the first pasuk. Okay, now the Gemara comes back to the machlekes Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Hanina. If a person gives his maestros as Tovas Hanal, so you can get money for giving the maestros. Maznisa pliga al Rabbi Yochanan. The Mishnah in Kiddushin seems to argue Rabbi Yochanan. HaMekadesh with Trumas and maestros and matanos. If you're Mekadesh a wife with Truma or Masa, or the three the matanos, Chaim and Keva, which are normally given to a Cohen, or Mechatos, right? You like your wife so much, you want to get her engaged. Here, please take this red heifer water, right? My love, take this red heifer water, right, which they sprinkle on the dead people, on the tamei meis to be metahirim. Mechatos. But for evachatos, you don't even give her a glass of water. Please take this red heifer ashes to be your kiddushin. Imagine how she feels with that, right? Hareza Mekudeshes. She's Mekudeshes after being Yisrael, even though he's Yisrael. He only has Tovas Hanal in the Trumas and Maestros. He can't eat himself. So you see, the ability he has to give it to someone else is considered a monetary element that you can be Mekadesh a wife with it. And that's like Rabbi Hanina. Because of Yochanan, how is he being Mekadesh her? The Trumas and Maestros are not his. So he answered the Mishnah, it's Truma which he owned as an inheritance from his grandfather who was a Cohen. Since it's his financially, monetarily, it's his. And when it fell as a Yerusha to the grandson who's Yisrael, it's his money. And he can sell it to a Kohenim. And he can be Mekadesh a woman with it. But Truma of Yisrael, where he has to give it out, that he only has maybe Tovas Hanal, that's not considered his money. He can't be Mekadesh a wife with that. Now the Gemara comes back to our Mishnah about the rights of a Cohen and Levi in Maestros of a field that they took on. And it brings a similar brisa. Cohen Shemach Asada Yisrael. He sells his field to Yisrael, and he says at the time of the sale, all the Maestros you're going to separate from this field should be mine. You hear that? You buy the field, but Maestros have to come back to me. Right? You're leaving the Maestros with yourself, the Cohen. Then the din is, and Maestros Shalot is effective. And sure enough, the Cohen gets the Maestros. Ma'oshiyim Krim LeKohen. Can a Cohen, who's the owner of the field, sell to another Cohen the Maestros of the fruit that will be separated, and that the sale would help? So can the Cohen sell futures, right? Futures of these Maestros. Just like he can sell it to leave himself the Maestros, can he do a sale where he's going to leave the future Maestros to someone else? Or maybe it doesn't help. Maybe they're not here yet. Nishme'in That we learn from the following. If you sell the maestros of your field to someone else, lo yasa klum. It does not help. Sale doesn't help. You can't be maknes something which is not here. And valde shivchase, you sell your maidservant's children who are not yet born to your friend. Lo yasa klum. Doesn't help. And ubre behemtai lechavera, your friend's animal's fetus, which is not yet born, doesn't help. Lo yasa klum. Doesn't help. It's not yet here. You can't be maknes something which is not yet here. Avir chuvasai lechavera. If you've got a binyan, a building which is destroyed, and you want to sell the airspace above the ruin, lo yasa klum. Nothing, doesn't help. Because the airspace is not tangible. You can't put a kinyan on it. And what you can do is sell the field, you can retain for yourself the maestros in the field. But even though you can't be maknes something that's not yet here, you can leave something for yourself at the time of the sale, right? And shivcha, I said to you, the maidservant, I maintain, I leave for myself that child. I leave the animal fetus for myself, and also something which is not tangible. I said to you, the ruin. I maintain the airspace for myself. You can keep something which is not yet tangible. You can still maintain it and keep it. So a Cohen can't sell maestros of his field to another Cohen, even though he can leave for himself the maestros when he sells his field to Yisrael. You get that? So he can leave the maestros for himself, but he can't start selling it to someone else. What's the reason for the difference? Why is there a difference between sale and leaving for yourself? So he brings here, because when you leave something for yourself, davar shloi ba'olam, your das is to leave for yourself your rights in the land with that regard. It says in Babasra, ba'ain yofer, like a person who leaves something for himself, he's generous when he leaves it for himself. But when you're selling to your friend something which is not yet here, or something not yet tangible, it wasn't your intention to sell the rights in that land, you're only selling that particular item. And there's no kinyan that can attach to it. Okay? So that's the idea, is that when you're keeping something for yourself, you're more generous to keep something for yourself. Now the Gemara continues, how you can sell to someone else the airspace, or the maestros, which are not yet here. How can you sell the airspace? Okay, you can't sell the airspace to your friend, but there is a way how you can do it. How is it? Sipata explained it by Omalai, when you tell the buyer, you pick up, detach this bit of grass, and through that, by you improving the ground, it'll be like a kinyan chazaka, and through that you acquire the land, and through that you acquire the airspace. You hear that? By detaching something, you acquire the lot. So here as well, selling maestros, which are not yet here, the land is here, so it could be you can sell the maestros together with the land. He says, detach something from this ground, and through that you acquire a chelek, a portion in the actual land, and the portion on which the maseh will grow, which is a tenth of the crop, and through your acquisition in the land, you will acquire the maestros when they come eventually. Yeah, here's another example of a kinyan. So what? Detaching in order to acquire. You hear that? You come across that before? Detaching in order to acquire. A Cohen sells a field to Israel and he says, I'm going to ask you a maestros shali, if the maestros should be mine, and maestros shalai, the maestros do stay his. But mace, if the Cohen dies, then the inheritors, the sons, do not get his rights. Yoshim are not included in his. He only kept the maestros for himself, and not to his Yoshim. The fact is, the Rishonim ask, if you've left yourself the rights in the land for the maestros, why do your children not inherit that? Why not? The Yosh, any mammon, any money that he has, any debts he was owed, they inherit. Some say it's not a finite shiur. We don't know which place in the land will maestros be taken from. Maybe there'll be no obligation to pay for maestros, and maybe you won't acquire it. So therefore, the Yoshim do not inherit. Okay. They don't inherit this right. Okay. Now, if he says Li Ulbanai, I'm selling it on the condition that the maestros go to me and my children, then Li Yashai, or if he said me and my inheritors, then he dies, Yesh Lev Maestros, so
Still you don't have a quantity.
then, but he has something. If he says me and my children, Yasha b'maestros, Yesh Lev Maestros, or Bala b'maestros, Yesh his sons and his inheritors. He's clearly mentioned as chus for his children or his inheritors, and the maestros become theirs. Rav Yudim Ba'Shan Ba'Yikov Rav Yosef, Ad Kedun, that's all very well, it helps, but Yoshin Shemid Val Torah, with biblical Yoshim. But like the Yosh from the Torah, like a brother, a father. But what about Philip Yoshin Shein Amid Val Torah, even rabbinical Yoshim as well? Very good question. We have no answer. That's how some learn, that there's no answer. Others learn, even B'Yoshin, which is not from the Dvar Torah, is the answer to the suffix of Yud Vashalan. That the Tanai helps even with rabbinical Yoshin. Right, you hear that? And the Lashon of Ba'a is not an expression of doubt. He just said it, and he was happy with what he was saying. Yerushalmi often, Ba'a means to say. It doesn't always mean to ask. You follow? So there we are. Now the one continues the Brisa. A Cohen who sells a field to Yisrael, and he says, in order, Shulkol Masas Shali, that the Masas should be mine, Kozman Shehula Fanov. As long as the field is in your domain, the Masas will be mine. You are Masas Shalai, Kozman Shehula Fanov. So the Masas will be his as long as this person has the field. But, if the buyer sold it to someone else, then Ein Lo B'Maestros, the Cohen does not get a Maestros. So the condition was, as long as you have it, I get a Maestros. Now you've gone and sold it, I don't get. Chaza Lekacha Mimenu, if after that, after the first seller went and sold the field to someone else, you hear that? So I sell the field, I want the Maestros to be mine, while this guy has it, the Maestros are mine. This guy then went and sold the field, so we said, well, the Maestros are not mine. Then the one who sold the field went and bought it again. Do we go back to what it was before? Do the maestros become mine again or not? So the seller went and rebought the item after he'd sold it. He went and rebought it. That this Cohen does not get a maestros. His rights have disappeared. When it went to a third party, that's it. That's the end of it. Even though the person went and bought it back. No, he has maestros. Why? Because the buyer went and bought it, and the tzad is in front of him again, and you go back to all the conditions again. Now we're going to compare this machlokes to another machlokes elsewhere. As you need a bagvus or get a bagvus, it's like an argument elsewhere. The Tanina and Tama, we've learnt in Kesubas. And a guy zero divorces his wife and takes her back. He didn't write a new Kesubah. Right? He didn't write a new Kesubah. So Almanas Kesubasa Rishon El Zira. The intention was the new marriage is based on the original Kesubah that was written.
There's a date.
What? So what? It's still valid. He didn't intend to. They never tore it up. So this is one opinion that they're going back to the original Kesubah. And if they got divorced or the husband dies, she gets one Kesubah, which was the original one that was written. He said, "Train Amorah." There's an argument. Harav one said, "Ksuva, chiv ksuva, the main ksuva, every person 200 zuz, but not for any other conditions that were taken on." So if he took on any extra obligations the first time round, they were nullified when he divorced her, and when he takes her back, they never took on these extra obligations after that. Right? He was only thinking about the first ksuva, but not on anything extra. The Harav and the other one said, "Bein l'ksuva, bein l'tanai." Whether for the ksuva or for the other conditions, we say everything goes back to what it was. Okay? And similarly, we're comparing it to our case. The Cohen who leaves maestros for himself, as long as the buyer has the land, the buyer went and sold it, the buyer bought it back. So the one says you only go back for the ksuva, but not for the other conditions. Then it should be ein lo b'maestros. Then I'm afraid the Cohen does not get maestros, because the Tanai of the Cohen was only for a period of time when it was in the ownership because of the original sale, but not when he bought it back again. That everything goes back to what it was, then he holds yesh leber maestros, that we also include everything that the Cohen will have a right to the maestros again when the person buys it back. Okay, now we're going to talk about machlokes from Chaim Rabbi Yosha, and we're going to ask from Chaim from the right. So, but I'll tell you, we've learned Kibel Sadeh B'Kahenes, Yisrael receives a field as an oris from a Kohenes, who's a single Kohenes, who's not married, and Masras Shalah, the Masras go to her, because Masras go to the owner of the field, okay, she's a Kohenes, and if after that Nises Yisrael, she marries Yisrael, who now can't eat from her, then her din is like Yisrael, and the oris and her, Chol Kim Masras. Now, she's married Yisrael, now they divide the Masras. But this Abel and this Gasha, she got divorced or widowed from Yisrael, she's got no children, then she goes back home. So Chazra, it goes back to what it was, the Masras are hers. Now, according to Reb, we should have said, well, the rights went away when she married Yisrael. They've gone away. They shouldn't go back. Just like Reb said, with the Cohen who sold to someone else, when it bought it back. Once the schus of the Cohen has gone away, when she sold it to someone else, when he sold it, they shouldn't come back, and he shouldn't acquire it again. So the Gemara answers, Kan shemacha, kan shekiva. So there's a difference in the situation of Chia, where Cohen sells a field, yeah, and what happens to the Maestros when it comes back into ownership. And the case of the Brisa, where Yisrael took on to work a field as an oris from a Kohenes. He says, with a sale, once you sell, the field of the Cohen is gone, and he hasn't got the schus in Maestros anymore. Now, once the seller, the buyer, has sold it, and the schus of the Cohen's gone away, it doesn't come back, right? But as far as receiving a field as an oris, the main part of the field remains belonging to the Kohenes, and it stays in her chazaka even at the time when she's married to Yisrael. It still stays in her ownership, right? Even though she's married to Yisrael now. And therefore, when she gets divorced or widowed, it just comes straight back, that she goes back to her normal din of Maestros, and that she's a Kohenes, she's allowed to have Maestros. Well, I'll tell you Reb Chia, and also, but Reb Chia himself learned the Brisa differently. He learned Machra, if a Kohenes sells a field to Yisrael, that the Maestros are hers, and she marries Yisrael and then got widowed or divorced, it goes back to the beginning. So even with a sale we say this. We don't say, well, once her schus has gone away when she married Yisrael, it doesn't come back. And that's not like Reb Chia. We're saying, no, it does come back even with a sale. In the case of Reb Chia, where Cohen sold to Yisrael, and he made a condition the Maestros would be his as long as it's in the buyer's hand, and then the buyer went and sold it to someone else, and then he bought it back. At the time when he sold it, it left both of their ownership. It left the ownership of the Cohen and the ownership of the buyer. So at the same time, the rights of the Cohen disappeared with this Maestros of the field. They don't come back. But Amhacha, here, Kohenes, who sells, and then got married to Yisrael, and then got widowed, the field, Yasam Mishas Moicha, it did leave the Kohenes, I agree, but La Yasam Mishas Lekeach, it was in his domain, the Lekeach's domain, even when she married Yisrael. Right? The one who bought it, the Kohenes sells the field, and she marries Yisrael, and then she's widowed, yeah? It's not left the reshus of the buyer, it was in his domain even when he married her, and since the Tanai was, this Lekech is not left his domain, the schus has not completely gone away, and when she comes back and she's widowed again, her rights come straight back. So what's the answer we said here? We said, when a Cohen sells, he wants the Maestros when the buyer has them. The buyer sells it to someone else, and then takes it back. When the buyer sold it, it wasn't in their reshus. It wasn't in the reshus of the Cohen, it wasn't in the reshus of the buyer, so the schus have gone away, and it doesn't come back. Whereas the Kohenes who sells, and she marries Yisrael and she's widowed, the field, you're right, it left the Kohenes, but it didn't leave the Lekeach, right? It was in his domain even when she married Yisrael, okay? And since the condition was with this Lekeach, it's not left his domain, the schus is not completely gone. Okay, now another brayso about a Cohen who leaves the Maestros for himself. Cohen Shemach Hasad Yisrael. But he sells the field to Yisrael and he says, I'm an Astri of Maestros Shir. I want all the Maestros to be mine. The Cohen who's selling it. For 4 or 5 years. The Cohen can object on the buyer, Shalai Litar Kerem. Not to, he can stop him from planting a vineyard. What's the problem with a vineyard? 3 years is Orla. 3 years is Orla. 4th year, Revoi. Possible for Maestros. No Maestros there. So what's the Kohen said? I gave you a field and I can't get anything out of it. But Shaloi Lazara Istis, this type of plant, they used to call Istis what, woad or some kind? Not to sow, this type of plant was used as a dye, it's not food. And it's potted from Maestros. Shaloi La Saisa, stay cutting. Not to make, although it's not food, but not to make into reeds. The Kohen says, I want the Maestros. So therefore, the Lekeach has to have fruit, which is Chayat Maestros, right? Not to have reeds and things which are not Chayat Maestros. But if the condition was, I want the Maestros Shali La'olam, I want the Maestros to be mine forever, you can't stop him planting a vineyard. Shaloi Lazores is not to plant this other stuff, woad. Shaloi La'asaisa stay kanim, or to stop him putting reeds. The condition might be coming about in future years. He will have other fruits which has Meiser obligations, yeah? So if you say, forever, it's always mine, well, this year he can sow some reeds if he wants. Next year he'll get some food, okay? Also, story came before Racha. Someone basically said, the Meiser should be mine for 4 or 5 years. The Lekeach went and made some reeds, which he wasn't allowed to do. And Ravacha obligated him to the Lekeach to give the seller 1/10 of all the reeds in the field. It was a knas to give the seller as if he planted a type of plant there, which was Maisa obligation. Yisrael sells a field to a Cohen. He says, I want to have the Maestros 4 or 5 years. Mutter is permitted. The Cohen is entitled, he acquires the Maestros. It's like other money, he can give it to anyone he wants. He can agree to the condition of the seller, that he'll give the seller the Maestros for 4 or 5 years. But if the seller tells the buyer, I want the Maestros to be mine forever, la'olam, then also, that's forbidden, she'en Cohen osekain, because a Cohen can't be mezakeh the Maestros to Yisrael forever. As if you're making, Yisrael who's buying it, into a Cohen who's entitled to the Maestros. You can't give the Yisrael the Maestros forever. That's again a zilzul in Kohuna. Okay. Cohen shemacha sada Yisrael. A Cohen sells a field to Yisrael. Amalai, he says, I'm going to ask you a Maestros shalach. The Maestros will be yours 4 or 5 years. Right? The buyer will get the Maestros instead of giving it to a Cohen. Also, that's the problem. In the ratio of the Brisa, when Yisrael sells to a Cohen, then it's allowed the Cohen to give the Maestros to Yisrael for 4 or 5 years. But here in the Sefer, when the Cohen sells to Yisrael, we're saying it's forbidden. What difference is there? So our answer is, count in the ratio when Yisrael sells to a Cohen, the Cohen is mezakeh to Yisrael, the Maestros which are his. The field is his, the Maestros are his, he can give it to Yisrael. Whereas in the Sefer, when the Cohen sells to Yisrael, Zikol b'davar she'ena b'shusai, he's giving something which is not his. The field belongs to Yisrael. Therefore, there's no Maestros in the Rishus of the Cohen, and he can't be makneh them to a Yisrael. Okay. Is there any way here? Yeah, let's carry on. Yisrael shekibel v'kohen Levi. Right. Now we're talking about machlekas. Dividing up Maestros between the owner of the field and an Oris. So Yisrael is an Oris. He's getting a percentage from a Cohen or a Levi, and Maestros lebailin. The intention of the Cohen and the Levi was the Maestros should go to them. That was part of the agreement. Now, similarly, we find with Masechet, Yishmael over Hakatani is like a villager who's outside Yerushalmi. Shekibel Sodem Yerushalmi, he's an Oris from a Yerushalmi man. Masechet, the Masechet of this field is Shel Yerushalmi. It must go to the Yerushalmi person. Because surely the owner of the knowledge of the Balasada and the Oris, that was the agreement. The Maser can only be eaten in Yerushalayim, so probably it goes to the owner who lives in Yerushalayim. Right, that's where the Balasada lives. The Chachamim say no. Well, the villager can always take it and go and eat it in Yerushalayim. Since the Maser is fitting for the Oris as well, they divide it, just like the rest of the fruits. Why give it all to the Yerushalmi person just because he's living there? Adate, the Rabbi Yishmael, according to Yishmael, Elu Kohen Taveh, Sheshutavim Kohen Tahor. You have an Oris, let's say in a field of a Kohen who's Tahor. and you've got a Cohen Tameh there, he's a partner. Shema and Chokim Maestros, you think that we don't divide up the Maestros? Of course we do. Even though Truma is not fitting for the Oris, because he's Tameh, we don't say, well, he'll get the owner of the field will get it all, because the Oris can become Tahar, and then the Truma will be fitting. Right? So an Oris, who's a villager, why can he not get Masa Sheni? It's fitting for him. He can go to Yerushalmi and he can eat it. Taman, the answers, over there with an Oris is a Kohen who's Tameh, Yachol hu lemoichron lekohen Tahar, Acher. Yeah, you can sell it to another Kohen who is Tahar. So the Truma is fitting for him even now, even though he's Tameh, because he can sell it to someone else. But but here with Masa Sheni, Yachal akatani lalis lachu b'Yerushalayim. In Masa Sheni, there's a big tircha, it's a big bother going to Yerushalayim. You can't start selling it to someone else. You can't sell Masa Sheni. And it's not fitting for him eating without a lot of bother. Therefore the das was that the owner of the field will get it. It was easy, Yerushalmi. And he is fitting to get all the master without any bother. You follow? You're not going to be able to do anything about it. You can't start selling it to anyone. Masa Sheni. You'll have to walk all the way. There are people, Rabbi Isai. One of my cousins lives in a little moshav, I don't know what, and it's like they do every year for Pesach. And so they go on a donkey or something to Yerushalayim. They do it takes them a whole 6 hours walk to go from their moshav to Yerushalayim. The whole chevra that thing, a regel, and they just they don't do a Korban Pesach. No. Yeah, okay. But there we are. All right. I think we shall stop here.